One summer, when I was a student, I was a bit underemployed, and I had to face the cold, hard reality that I no longer had any excuse to not exercise. I had the time, I had the tools. There was nothing but my complete lack of motivation between me and better fitness. So I started riding my bicycle all over the place. And when I reflect on that experience, I find that I'm of three minds. Because the thinking part of my brain understands that to lose 1 pound of body fat, you have to burn 3,500 calories, right? The emotional part of my brain understands if you spent 20 years getting out of shape, you're probably not going to get into shape in 20 minutes. But the rest of my brain, which is by far the large part, simply cannot understand why getting in shape takes so much time and so much effort. I mean, that part of my brain just knows there must be a silver bullet, some shortcut, an easy and simple way to fitness I just haven't found yet. And as a human being, I'm often reluctant to accept the fact, sadly, silver bullets usually do not exist. And some days I don't want to accept the reality I have to do the work myself. And I'm sure I'm not alone here, right? I'm sure most of us would love to have a silver bullet that solved our biggest problem in life. One exercise that makes us fit, but even in religious circles, one prayer that resolves our deepest longings, one Bible verse that makes all of life make sense. In an instant, in a moment, without any real effort on our part. Which reminds me of our gospel story. Thank you for reading that, Lou. Because in our gospel reading today, Jesus and Peter walk on water, while the rest of the disciples wait for a silver bullet. But I can't go there quite yet. Just need a slight diversion. Because as we know, many words have been redefined during our own lifetime and without our permission. For example, I don't know when you noticed this, but used cars, became pre-owned cars. Remember that? Garbage collectors became sanitation engineers. Prison guards became correctional officers. Do you know that cyclists no longer drink water from water bottles? Did you know that? We still need water. It's just that the thing you drink from is now called a hydration system. Now, do you know that walking on water has been redefined? No? It's now considered extreme sport called liquid mountaineering. I don't know why you're laughing. I really don't. Experts like Sebastian van der Woof and Mikhail Defortry give people tips how to do it. They give you advice on selecting the right shoes, how to approach the water, how to use your legs more effectively to actually walk on water. Did you know, for example, you should first of all run on the water, not walk? Running works better for some reason nobody explains. Instead of running straight into the water, you should approach on a gentle curve, which gives you more lift, apparently. And when you get onto the surface of the water, you should make your feet move like a sewing machine, as depicted. The experts in this extreme sport remind us the sport is still in its infancy. They posted a video explaining all about liquid mountaineering, well, many videos, but the oldest one I could find was 2010, viewed by 15 million people. And I invite you to check out Liquid Mountaineering on YouTube for your own entertainment. Because it's a good reminder that when we give something a new name, it can generate a lot of excitement and interest. And yes, the entire video was simply meant for product placement like this. It was simply an advertisement for footwear, of course. In our gospel reading today, Matthew paints a very interesting story, his own version of liquid mountaineering. Because once again, because it keeps happening, the disciples find themselves in a boat. Once again, the disciples find themselves in fear. The boat was being battered by waves. And then Jesus appears, but his appearance causes even more fear, actually. The disciples were afraid because they did not recognize Jesus, who it says looked like a ghost. Maybe there was some fog or some mist. In any case, Jesus was definitely in a place the disciples did not expect to see him. And then Peter, on Jesus' command, walks toward Jesus on the water. In the text, it sounds as if Peter is actually succeeding for a step or two. But then Peter is distracted by the wind and the waves, which also cause fear. And so he stops walking on water and starts sinking into it. It always intrigues me in this story that Jesus does not start by calming the wind and the waves to reduce the fear of the disciples right at the start. The wind and the waves do not die down until the end of the story when they're all safely back in the boat anyway. Jesus does not provide a silver bullet in this story. He lets the disciples get on as best they can as they work things out for themselves. I always think maybe the disciples would have been happier overall if Jesus had simply left them alone all night long and greeted them with coffee and donuts in the morning on the shore, because I probably would have appreciated that. This story always raises a particular question for me. No, not that question. I'm not particularly interested in whether or not Jesus and Peter walked on water. That may interest you, and we can chat about it. Happy to chat. But for me, the key question I have about this story is very basic. Did Peter fail? Did he fail? Is Peter a loser because he sank into the water? Or is he someone we should admire because he overcame his fear, at least partly, and tried something new? Even in the end, if he did not succeed. Peter, to his credit, at least got out of the boat. We don't hear about the rest of the disciples, but the rest of the disciples just sat in the boat in fear, waiting for a silver bullet. Peter got out of the boat. One of my favorite hymns in more voices, 138, My Love Colors Outside the Lines. And I think Peter must have written the chorus himself. Because the chorus, if you remember it, is, we'll never walk on water if we're not prepared to drown. Body and soul need a soaking from time to time. And we'll never move the gravestones if we're not prepared to die and realize there are worlds outside the lines. Powerful words. We'll never walk on water if we're not prepared to drown. I also love the hymn River Running in You and Me, 163, which we'll be singing a bit later. Because I think Peter might have written verse 4. I stand on the edge, looking down, too scared to swim, afraid I'll drown. Give me the courage to journey on, river run deep, river run free. Which also speaks of fear. And those hymns and our reading from Matthew speak to something we are dancing around a bit in the church, something we don't usually like to name out loud directly, which is fear. As you probably know, I'm a member of the executive of Shining Waters Regional Council. That means I hear lots of stories from around the wider church. And across the United Church, we're living with a certain amount of fear right now. As budgets and membership shrink, it raises the question of how we will survive as congregations. Most congregations have the same questions. How do we maintain the building? How do we keep our staff? And beyond that, I see fear around identity. As Canadian society becomes less Christian and less religious overall, how are we to be the church today? What does it even mean to be church today? And for those of us who live in Thorncliffe Park, what does it mean to be very rare, which is a United Church located in a predominantly Muslim neighborhood? And I'm sure that for some of us, that fear came just a little bit closer to home when we read the financial statement Mary Ellen sent out recently. Because, of course, there are reasons for fear. But as in our gospel today, fear is not an enemy that needs to be defeated. Fear is a reality we have to live through and with. When Jesus came out to the disciples, he did not start by eliminating fear. He started with simply his presence, with encouragement to step out of the boat, with encouragement to step from a known world into an unknown world. Jesus did not start by eliminating the disciples' fear. Jesus just asked Peter to step out of the boat. And Peter did step out of the boat, and then he was distracted by the wind and the waves, which caused even more fear. And then he started to sink. And fear is like that. It's easy to be distracted by things that cause us fear. And the church, we need to remind ourselves, our job has never been to fill pews anyway. It has always been and is about filling hearts. And on the general subject of getting more people into the church, I think we need to recognize it takes a certain amount of bravery to even walk into an unfamiliar church. We are not mainstream anymore. And one consequence of that is that many people have no idea what goes on inside a church. They don't know what to expect. So there's anxiety to even walk in the front door. Even this front door, which I assume to all of us looks quite friendly. In my first few months when I was here, I remember meeting a community member who wanted a little bit of support. She was from India. She was a student who also worked at Longo's. Some of you met her, I think. Her name was Pooja. Pooja never asked for money, but she was a bit lonely and she was trying to find ways to create her home in Canada, in Toronto. I believe we met for lunch 4 times. For a little while, she provided graphics to us. I don't know if any of you remember that used to be featured on the door of the church and in PowerPoint. Much fancier than my basic ones. And I would tell her the theme for the upcoming service, and she would create a lovely graphic we could use. So when Pooja left town is when they went back to my old standard. Pooja and I chatted easily and openly. She knew I was a minister here. She knew this was a church. And she saw me as basically friendly. I know, fooled another one, right? But during one of our lunches, but not the first, the third, after we already knew each other well, as we were chatting over lunch, I remember I invited her to come inside the church. And I don't remember why, but something we said at lunch, I wanted to show her something in the sanctuary. And she agreed. We are, I think, at Kandahar, so, it's a short walk to the church. Simple, right? Well, I went in the first door so that I could unlock the second door. And when I got to the second door, I realized she had not come through the first door. So I went back outside. And she told me she was afraid to come in the building. Even though I was right there. The minister, who she knew, she had a personal invitation. We just spent an hour sharing lunch together. Yet she was afraid. And she confessed she did not know what to expect inside a church. And that was a real lesson for me, I got to tell you, that it takes that much vulnerability for some people even to enter the building, even with the minister at their side. Now, I know we might say that their fears are unfounded, but the fact is those fears are real and the fears exist. So one question we could ask is there any way to help lower the fear and anxiety of people so they'll actually come in for something? I mean, suppose they hear about a program, movie night or whatever, for people we don't know, these are people we want to invite to come in, is there a way to lower that fear and anxiety? Well, not to oversell the project, but Nicola and I have been working on a project this summer. We've been recreating the website. And the impetus for this started as a simple request from the events committee that they wanted a better way to upload photos from events. Good request. But we decided to change more than that, because our website is basically the online front door to the church. So the question was, what can we do with our website that would help newcomers feel brave enough to come in the door? What do newcomers need to know that would help them take the risk to walk in the door? So I'm not saying this is perfect, but the current version of the website is decidedly outward facing. It's primarily aimed at people who do not already know who we are. It's also intended to provide an honest, genuine introduction to Chapel in the Park, and I think it represents who we are. But I invite you all to reread the website, and when you read it, you go, what church are we talking about? Please let Nicola or I know, because the idea is to represent who we are. This site also, well, it's not quite done yet, but it will include links to things we need ourselves too, of course. Links to online services, newsletters, board minutes. But the first few pages were designed and written not with you in mind, but with outsiders in mind. Because we want to reduce fear and anxiety that someone might have who is considering visiting us but doesn't yet know how easy it is to get along with us. And I guess I should add, the purpose of the website is to help new people feel brave enough to come in the door. But once they're inside, it's up to all of us. We and the community here is the main attraction, not the website. The website is tidy and clean, but it's not complete. And sadly, even the photos for the events committee are not there yet, but they will be after the next event. So look for more improvements in the fall. But please read the words, because and Nicola and I really want to know. If you read it and go, who's he talking about? Then we have more work to do. But think about how we would explain ourselves to people who don't already know us. And I want to close by returning to the earlier question. Did Peter fail? And you already know what I think about this, I'm sure. I would argue, no, Peter did not fail because Peter tried. His friends huddled in the boat in fear, waiting for a silver bullet. If anyone failed, I think it was the other disciples, in fact. But Peter got out of the boat. And Peter made the effort to imagine a different future. Peter, in spite of his fear of drowning, actually, in the story, walked on water. That should be applauded, I think. So are we, like Peter, willing to step out of the boat, willing to step out of our comfort zone? Even if it means that we risk something. Probably not being drowned, but we have to risk something. Or are we going to sit back, waiting for a silver bullet, waiting for Jesus to fix everything for us so we don't have to make any effort ourselves? There's so many interesting visuals I could use with this, especially in the summer. But if you're in the boat and you imagine Jesus calling you to step out, how do we react? So I can picture being the guy that's going to fiddle with my life jacket. I'm going to pretend I didn't actually hear, you know that guy? Do we fiddle with our life jacket or do we get out of the boat? Now, I'm going to be away for 4 weeks, not quite a month. But when I return, I would love to hear each of your own stories about the ways in which you, this summer, stepped out of the boat in whatever sense that means to you. I'm not expecting dramatic stories. Stepping out of the boat can be small, simple things. But there's still a difference between being in the boat and being out of the boat. Have a great summer. Amen.